Welcome. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on color correction using Adobe Premiere. Let's get into it. So today I'm using Adobe Premiere Pro CC. Most of the tools should be very much the same across all the versions of Premiere, or most of the versions of Premiere. In fact, most software probably has very similar features, but as I said, we'll be doing it in Premiere. Color correction is a very broad subject. It can be very fast and easy, or it can be very long and hard. It really just depends on the clip you're working with. But basically what it is just fixing up the colors. It's not grading. Color grading is different. Color grading is getting the finished look of your video. Color correction is just making sure the white balance is correct, brightness, things like that. So without further ado, let's get started and we'll go from there. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Premiere. Got my clip loaded in my little sequence here. It's just a single clip. I'm pretty happy with the way this clip turned out as it is. It doesn't need much adjustment, but just delete this. We'll start from scratch. So first thing I usually do is start with the fast color corrector, and I get my white balance and sometimes play with a few other settings from there. So what we'll do, just go to your effects, and you can use the search bar here and type fast, and you'll see there fast color corrector. And you can either drag that over here to your effects panel, or you can drag it onto the clip. Either way, it doesn't matter. I usually just drag it onto the clip, and then you can see it. There you go. So white balance here, I think the white balance of this clip's already pretty good, but generally what you do is you grab the eyedropper and you select something white in the clip. So the sky here is a bit blown out, so we'll go with that white, and nothing much changed because the white balance is pretty good on this one. But let's just, as a test, we'll just click on something random like a green leaf. Didn't change much. So there you go. You can see it went a little bit blue. If we scroll down here, you can see it's made the adjustment here on the wheel. So you can do that manually also. So you can even do this as a grading. So you can make it a bit nostalgic looking and a bit of yellow, or you can go kind of cinematic with the blue. But as I said, I was pretty happy with the way this came out, so the white balance hasn't even moved, so it's pretty good as it is. So if you scroll down, there's some more settings here. Usually all I play with here is the input levels. So there you go. If you pull the white down at the top there, it adds more white to the image. You can move the middle one, it moves the midtones around, so like that looks quite nice for a cinematic style shot. It really depends what you want to go for. We're not grading, as I said, we're just correcting, but I usually use a little plugin for Premiere called Film Convert for grading, but you can grade as you go with color correction. There's no rules, but generally color correcting, like that looks pretty cool. Generally color correcting is making sure your white balance is okay and your general brightness and stuff. And what you do is, if you had two clips side by side, you'd want to try and match those as much as you can if they were shot in the same environment. Obviously there's going to be some differences if you went from an indoor room to outside, but generally if it's the same scene in the same place, you want to match the clips so you don't get one that's dark and all of a sudden it's bright, or the color changes because of the color temperature, because of the color balance, or the white balance, sorry. So yeah, you can play with these as much as you can. There's no rules. I can't just give you some magic number to put in here because every single clip is going to be different. So it's a really hard one. So that's the fast color corrector. We'll just close that down. We'll leave it. It hasn't really done anything. It's very slightly there. The next one I sometimes use is there's so many tools for this, but three-way color corrector. So we go to our effects, go type in 3, and we drag that on. Now this is basically your shadows, midtones and highlights, so you can change these individually. For a cinematic look, I usually pull the shadows down towards the blue and the highlights up towards the yellow, and then you can just play with the midtones as you see fit. Now another really handy tool to use when you're color correcting is the lumetri scopes. So if you go to window here and then lumetri scopes just there, what this tells you here is 100 is the brightest up here and 0 is the darkest. So what you want to try and get is this green stuff here. You want to try and get that as spread out as you can, so close to 0 and close to 100. So down here's the darkness, so because it's a pretty bright clip, it starts up here. There's parts that are blown out like the sky, that's why they're all the way up here. So if we just go back to our fast color correction, we'll grab our RGB curves, but so basically the three-way color corrector is very similar to the fast color corrector, you just get a bit more to play around with. I'm just going to delete this for now. Next tool we're going to look at is the RGB curve. So if you go back to your effects panel, type RGB, start typing curves, there it is there. So we're going to drag that onto our clip. And here you'll see there's 4 windows here. So you've got the master, which will change the image overall. You've got the red, we'll just try to adjust the reds, green and blue. So what you'll see is if you grab this bit at the top here and pull it down, we're starting to reduce the highlights like that. If you grab the bottom part of it here and push it up, you're going to increase the highlights there. So you can see the lumetri scope's moving up and down. As I do this, it's going more towards the bright side, and as you can see, they're completely blown out. Now what you want to do is try and keep close to 100 but just a little bit off it, and close to 0 but a little bit off it. This isn't a rule, and I never really look at the scopes that much anymore. I used to, but sometimes you find you get something that's perfect on the scope but it just doesn't look that great. So obviously your eye's going to do a better job than what this is. This is just telling you how bright or dark something is in your image, but maybe you want it dark or maybe you want it bright. So the scopes are just to tell you whether it's exposed correctly, but it's not always accurate. It's always accurate, but it might not always be what you want your finished shot to look like. So what we'll do here, we're just going to pull the master down just a little bit, just from the top there. You can also grab any part in the middle there and do something like an S curve. That'll move the whole image. That's obviously too dark. So what we'll do, I'm going to pull this across just a bit until we're nearly on the 0 there. So bright, pull this down just a touch, and there we go. So that already looks better. We can do individual colors too, so the red, you can see the red on the scope moving up and down there. And what you want them to pretty much look similar, so which they do. We'll close that for now, and let's turn this off for a second and see the difference. So there you go, massive difference right there. You can see it's all white and hazy, and once we apply the curves, we've got very nice color. In my opinion, I would say this is finished, and then I'd move on to grading. Grading's going to be a separate video, but you can grade as you go with this. So as I said, the lumetri scopes show this image to be pretty well exposed, pretty well done, but I might even want to do some color correction, color grading. So I might want this to be darker overall, a bit more, a bit more cinematic looking or brighter. As you can see, if I make it brighter, the sun up here coming through the trees is extremely blown out. It was blown out in the original image. It was pretty bad skies that day. Yeah, I might want to make it darker, just like that. That looks quite cinematic, quite nice. There you go. And then there's so much more you can get into color correction. There's so many tools. If you just close this and look at video effects and color correction, you've got all these, color balance, there's so many here. Tint, you can put a tint over there you go, and you can map, say you want all the blacks to be red, and that'll make all the blacks red, and you want let's just say you want all the whites to be blue. There you go. So you can see what was white in the image and what was black, or what had shades of black in there anyway. We'll get rid of that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. But yeah, you need to just play around with these tools. As I said, the main one I use is fast color corrector, RGB curves, and sometimes a three-way color corrector. Let's just chuck the three-way back on there now and do some little bit of grading, just a quick grading tutorial. So I might want to pull the shadows down to the blue a little bit, highlights up to the yellow, and we'll just play with the midtones. So you can see now it looks like a sun-blessed, beautiful kind of day. Look at that, that's quite nice. See a little bit of a difference, a little bit of yellow added in there, just gives it a happier kind of feel. Blue, you know, makes things a little bit darker. A lot of cinematic stuff, as I said, is shadows are usually down to the blue, the highlights up to the yellow. Just trying to think if there's anything else that I usually use. That's about it. So let's look at our scopes for a second and just see. See, now we're bordering on being underexposed or a bit dark, but I prefer the look of that. That's what I'm saying by don't just abuse the scopes and just get everything perfect there, because by the time you're finished, it's a good way to just work out the general overall exposure of the image, but it's not good if you're grading, because by the time you finish grading, your clips are going to be all over the place. You might want to, I like things that are really kind of dark and saturated like this is. I mean, in fast color corrector, you've got so many settings here. RGB curves, you've got so many settings here. And then three-way color corrector, again, you've got heaps of settings. So here you have saturation, and this will just saturate the image. That's, as you can see there, it starts to look a bit fake, a bit silly. Or you can take all the saturation out. So there's a lot of things that you can play around with. Those three tools, as I said, these three here, fast color corrector, RGB curves, and three-way color corrector is probably the most important things that I use. As I said, for grading I usually use film convert, but I will do a tutorial on grading, and that will be, I'll do one using just Premiere tools and another one using maybe film convert, or do that in the same video, I'm not too sure. This feels like it's gone on long enough, but I'll show you one more tool that is also good I just saw, is Lumetri Color. So this one, this one you can do a lot of other things, basic correction here, you know, highlights, you can turn them up or down, you can see them, so you might want to turn the highlights down, shadows, so let's make our blacks really dark. I mean, so there's so much you can do. As I said, there's no magic tool or magic number I can give you, because every clip is going to be different. This is a little ad we did for Vespa, by the way, so it was a lot of fun that day. Going to be behind the scenes coming soon, so look out for that. That's about it. As I said, it's really hard to do a tutorial on something, because every single clip's going to be different. And if you've blown something out completely, sometimes it's impossible to get back, or if it's too dark. One little thing I'll show you very quickly, which is cool. Let's just say we go to our three-way color corrector and we get the pen tool. If a certain part of your image is blown out and you want to just make that darker, you can use the pen tool. Let's just do this really roughly. Just pull that out a bit. Really roughly as an example. And I'll feather the mask here so it's not a really obvious, an obvious edge. And what you can do is then whatever you do in that one area will only affect where the mask is. So we can, yeah, that's brightening it, we can pull that down. I mean, the sky's pretty lost, it's pretty blown out, so there's not much we can do. Let's move the mask somewhere obvious over his face. And you can see now, whatever adjustments I make only affect his face there. So that's very cool. There you go, and you can feather that even more, get that perfect. What you'll need to remember with that though is when your video moves, so you'll see the mask stays in the one place, you will have to keyframe that by using your keyframes here. So you click the stopwatch there and you move to a few more frames and you can move it. And what you'll see now is if I move this playhead, it moves with him. But you'll have to do that for your whole clip. That's about it. Sorry guys, I've gone on too long already. It's a very basic tutorial on color correction. It's something you really have to play with yourself. It's not, as I said, there's no magic numbers or magic tools. Well, there's magic tools, but there's no magic number I can give you and your clip's gonna look fantastic. Every clip's different. Hope that helped. Please subscribe. Look forward to the color grading tutorial I'll have out soon, as well as behind the scenes for Vespa. It was a super fun day. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you soon.